quote, a silly mistake.
Yeah, obviously it's much more than silly. It was not back in the day either. It was not that long ago, and it was not a mistake. Like when people say mistake, I think of like you tripped or something. Like this was a decision. It was an awful decision as part of a track record of many awful decisions. Granted, I guess at this point we still must say alleged because Jameis never admitted to what happened. But if we're going to accept that what is being accused of him happened, then you can't call it a silly mistake. No. And I think saying that you have his back, I understand you want to show support for your teammate, but this reminds me of the Hader situation, the pitcher for Milwaukee, where you also have to take into account the person or the people in that situation who are being affected by this. And none of the players seem to want to say that they have her back in the situation.
Well, and he used the word mistake singular. I mean, this is a pattern of mistakes. You go back to Florida State, he was accused of rape at Florida State. He stole the crab legs. He had the incident with the Uber. This is a series of bad decisions over and over. And I think, Mace, you can make the argument if you study all the incidents, you just Google Jameis Winston incidents, that this is a guy who doesn't respect women. There's a pattern of it over and over and over again. And we all know guys like this. There are guys out there. And until he proves otherwise, it's not one mistake. It's a mentality that he has yet to show he doesn't have.
Yeah, I mean, a mistake is I was late for practice because my alarm didn't go off, right? I mean, we're talking about, and you said it, it's a pattern. And it does indicate a lack of respect for women. Alleged groping of an Uber driver, but there was a finding made by the NFL after an investigation that something did take place there. And you're right, it didn't happen back in the day. It happened in 2016 when Jameis Winston, certainly old enough to know, mature enough to know.
And in the NFL, we should point out.
And in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like old enough and mature enough to know, like, I have a 5-year-old son.
That's the new code, right?
And he's old enough and mature enough to know that you keep your hands to yourself. So I don't, whether he was 20, 18, 75, like all of that you feel like you're old enough to speak, you're old enough to know that you should keep your hands to yourself. Again, to the point that him having an issue with women, like we haven't brought up the time in the classroom where while it wasn't nearly as egregious, like it reflects a way that you feel about women. The idea to tell the girls to sit down and all my big men stand up, like that's problematic thinking.
Or he stood on a table in a cafeteria and yelled nasty stuff about women. And it was captured on social media.
Yeah.
In a quad. I mean, you've got a series of just terrible I don't even want to call them mistakes. Just irresponsible, hateful, disrespectful moments.
Well, and we're going to hear from Jameis Winston coming up here. He's at a podium in Tampa, and we're putting that together. But if he comes out and says, "I apologize, I'm moving forward," blah blah blah, how many times is one person allowed to play that card? Right. Like, I think if you go back and look at Florida State when he was there, when he was accused of all these things, he played that card. And eventually, Dominique, like Bill Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are. And he's got a record.
Yeah, I think we all would agree with the sentiment that you should not be judged by your worst moment, but he has a lot of really bad moments.
So what do you do if you're him right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think all you can do is what he's doing now is say the right things, do the right things, and perform on the field. Sadly, that's the most important thing to how we will receive him as a fan base and as a country. If he all of a sudden is playing MVP level football, as we've seen, we mentioned some of the names in the past, we forget or at least forgive some of those things. And I personally would be rooting for him to play well, to do better. I don't want his career to burn out, but I do want him to learn and grow from these experiences. And he said that, I think, in his comments today. He said several times that he learned from it. The question that I hope someone asked him, and maybe we'll get the answer, is what have you learned?
Right. What have you learned, and what are you going to do moving forward? To me, it's also about, some sort of recompense. Like, what does he make some action, take some action that demonstrates that he's changing his attitudes? Does he show remorse? To me, that's one of the big things. Do you show remorse? I'll be curious to see if we get that from Jameis Winston.
The statement that he put out doesn't feel like remorse. Like the statement that he put out, he kind of blamed alcohol. He never really fully admitted to what happened. He was like sorry about the events of the night, something vague. And I mean, that's not a direct quote, but it's something very vague about what happened that night and how much responsibility he takes. And so while you said there were some findings by the NFL report, I guess we still have to put allegedly out there because he's not, until he cops to it, we can't really expect him to show some growth from it.
Keep this in mind, too, guys. This is the quarterback of the football team. Like, you might be able to tolerate somebody, a position player, doing it. But this is a face of the franchise guy. We did the story yesterday about how Tampa's taken him off of all the marketing materials just in case they cut him.
Yeah.
I mean, just in case he's not there. I'm not so sure if this is my quarterback. This is the guy that's leading my team, and he is apparently an excellent player. Like, you talk to people that have played with him, who have covered him. He's got a great arm. He reads defense.
Same time they went 5-11 last year.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if it's the quarterback, the question you have to ask is, can I trust him? He's the only guy talking in the huddle. Can I trust him? Do I want that guy at that position? And Dominique, it may be a no.
I mean, he's an excellent talent. And I think that's what people get excited about. He has never shown the ability to consistently make good decisions on the field and obviously off the field. I think that's the problem there. If he was able to do both of those, I think he would be a star in this league for many years to come. But I do kind of have a problem with the idea that we should hold quarterbacks to a higher standard. Like,
whether we should or we shouldn't, we do.
We do. I mean, that is the face of your franchise. That is who you are in the minds of a lot of your fans. What does every team need? They need a franchise quarterback. Everybody is looking for that guy. I wanted to mention just on Josh Hader. You mentioned him and the comments that he made on Twitter that turned up during the All-Star game. The one thing you can say for him is he showed immediate remorse. He apologized. He went to his teammates. He apologized to his teammates. He apologized to the fans. He actually, reportedly, he actually cried when talking about this. I don't know that we're necessarily going to get that from Jameis Winston. And that's what indicates that you're willing to change your life.